Welcome to the Poetry Vlog. My name is Ray, and this is Jess. Jess, would you please tell us a little bit about what our viewers can expect from this episode?
You can hear me talk about my collection, Winter Here. You will get to hear the titular poem, as well as some of the process for getting my sweet baby out into the world, as well as some the realities of defying categorization, and a list of queer poets I love and admire.
The beauty of contrast and the intense. Welcome to the Poetry Vlog. As you may have noticed, I am not C.R. Grimmer. My name is Ray Kaplan, and I will be doing our interview today with the wonderful Jess. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ray. I am Jessica Tanck. I am the author of Winter Here, published by UGA Press. And I currently live and write in Salt Lake City, where I am a doctoral candidate, soon to finish my degree, originally of Chicago and Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So, really happy to be here.
Awesome. And then would you please read a poem for us today?
Absolutely. So I went back and forth a lot about which poem I was going to read and ultimately decided on the titular poem of Winter Here. So, Winter Here. Winter here is inseparable from my hand in your pocket, wind on the collar at my throat, the cement streets, basted and sold, rasp against my boots. November opens like a knife, and I can't stop waiting to hear your footsteps on the stairs, to see your shadow through the frosted glass. The first night you sent me a poem, Chicago froze solid. Blood in the Merlot, the way I bit my lip. Season of evening, season of fairy lights, pomegranates, wool, and ice. I spent weeks suspended across state lines with you, our messages a fervor as the temperature dropped to 20, 40 below. Look at how cold, I said. Sent a photo of my bedroom window turned meat freezer, the metal frame feathered with frost. I'd been thrown from a draft horse on Christmas Eve and texted you pictures of the bruises as they darkened, arranged myself, shivering, in flannel, in candlelight, a smirk and black lace. It was finally snowing when you arrived at my door. I could never believe it. How my hands shook, pulse raced, mind gone black and blue. How I undressed in uncertainty, almost afraid to look at you. Remind me how lucky I was to wait and fear in the freezing quiet, the snow-sunk city. Tell me, what is reverence but terror, really? Wondering what the cold hands you've anointed with your mouth will do.
Wow, that is beautiful. Absolutely incredible. Blood in the Merlot as I bit my lip. Oh, it's like sugars. So, why did you pick this particular passage to read for us today?
You know, this poem is actually one of my favorites in the book, and it was never published before the actual, whole book was published. Mm-hmm. Despite that, I'm working on my second manuscript book of poems right now, and it's a lot about desire, and when I talk about desire, I'm usually talking about some kind of like painful but also like pleasurable, summoning or simultaneous
summoning
repulsion sort of vortex. And it's also winter here, and but yes, 'tis the season, and also I really like reading this poem too. I think it sort of carries itself forward. Some of the poems are a little bit thicker or denser in a way that the momentum feels slower, I guess. Mm-hmm. And my experience of reading them, some poems like roll off the tongue a little bit more, so. Yeah,
awesome. Can you talk a little bit about your journey in getting Winter Here published? And like how that was for you, the story of that.
Yeah, it was a long journey, an epic, one might even say. So this book was my M.F.A. Thesis, or as we call them in my program final project, and the reason for that is that then you don't have to publish it online, essentially, because if it's a thesis, then technically it automatically is published online basically at the end of your program. Before my MFA, I had never submitted anything for publication. I was completely unpublished, nothing. And honestly, I think it's good to like not open yourself up to that too soon. I think focusing on your work and what you want it to be without the like seeing it as a product to be like sold or like I'm not saying that everyone who's publishing is seeing it that way, but I guess this book started to be born. I was working with my MFA thesis advisor, the wonderful Corey Van Lanningham, and I was very lucky to have a mentor through this process. I think a lot of people don't.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just nice to have another set of eyes, because I think we can be our own worst critics, and there are a lot of poems I would have thrown out, I think, if I hadn't like had Corey's eye on the book. And she had me create 3 piles of poems. Yes, maybe, and ugh, which I put in all caps on my phone. And that December, we headed down into the basement of the English building. We laid out, you know, all of the poems on these tables around the classroom, and then wrote an exhaustive list of themes on the board. Every theme that I could think of that was important to the manuscript, basically. And I was pretty sure I wanted the manuscript to be in roughly chronological, biographical order, if that's such a thing. Just because that seemed to make sense to me, and also, like, it ended up so that a lot of the newest poems they're in the last section of the book. So we came up with a preliminary order based on that, starting with, like, what are the section beginners and enders? And moving from poem to poem, we would look a lot at how does this poem end? And then how does it open into the next poem? I actually, this is my favorite part of creating a manuscript, is ordering it, because of the way, like, how you can create echoes and resonances across the sections and poems. I love to create mini stories within the book. I like to think of it as like a series of rooms.
Okay.
I'm just obsessed with plays. The title of my manuscript in progress is The Poison Room. So it's like really, really thinking about rooms there. But in this one even too, I was like, well, and I was like, how many sections do I want to have? Probably 3 or 4, you know, like a manageable number that you can hold in your mind, and also feel like there's an arc. I was a member of I was in part of an orchestra like the first 18 years of my life, so having like, you know, it's almost like it's kind of like a 4-act structure, I don't know, or like something that you can hold in your mind. So anyway, I had like discussed with her, how does one group poems into packets? How does, like, where should I send my work? And she gave me a lot of great advice, and she did honestly the same thing with book contests, which are the primary mode of publication in poetry, for better and for worse. She gave me a list to start from. I started sending the manuscript out, and it went through several like iterations. When we were in the English basement, like December 2019. And so the manuscript finally got picked up, I want to say, like spring of 2023. So I was sending this out for years. And that's very, very common. I mean, most people I know. It's never going to be like
an instant.
I mean, you might get super lucky. I mean, like, some of this is luck, but I have not really heard of that happening. And honestly, like, some of the best advice I got about my poems during the MFA was, like, you know, put your work in a drawer for a while after you finish it, and make sure, like, you know, you're comfortable sharing it. Like, if you're not, especially if you're, like, feeling discontent or, like, you're not ready to share it, just take some time. And I honestly think, you know, that's a really hard thing now, because people feel they feel rushed, or they feel like they have to get it out there right away. Honestly, some of my favorite poems in the manuscript, it took 5 or more years to get them picked up. Yeah, so, because unfortunately I think the way it works is the more big names, journal names you have in your bio, the more likely they are to pick up your work, and unfortunately in some places I don't think will even read, like, your work if they don't. They might skim your bio first, and if they're not impressed, I mean, that's not 100% of the case, but let me tell you, you know, once I had a few, you know, good journals in my bio, my publication rate went
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an exponential curve there. Once you start getting in there, then you can get a much faster progress through the...
100%.
Yeah. Just to shift gears a little bit, I really, really like what you were saying about the rooms and how you conceptualize your work in the organization. And I think humans do have some sort of, like, inherent need to categorize. But from that, how have you felt as a writer coming to Utah, coming to this place where there is, you know, a norm of society and fighting categorization yourself?
That's a great question. Sometimes, you know, when I'm feeling sorry for myself, I'll feel like the last member of a species that is otherwise extinct.
Ooh.
When I am in, like, community, I feel more like some kind of beautiful manticore.
Yeah.
Unicorn. A beautiful beast.
Yeah.
That is, you know. It's interesting because when I'm thinking about art that I love, something I really love is contrast. And I love that in my life too, right? It's like that thing of, like, you're taking a hot shower and you press your hand against the cold tile.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's so beautiful. It's like if you've ever gone in like a hot spring when it's snowing. It's like that same kind of, like, and you can tell, like, my book is called Winter Here. But I'm drawn to these, like, elemental distinctions because I think they're so basic to us and they're such a basic form of, like, pleasure and joy and sensuality. And so there's part of me that, like, absolutely loves anything that defies categorization. I think breaking apart binaries or, like, inhabiting two or more things simultaneously, I, like, live for that.
So, like, embracing the contrast, because, like, queer existence is going to be politicized no matter what. That is just the age that we live in. And living in Utah, living somewhere where the majority is not queer, the majority feels like it's not like you, that contrast is going to be inevitable. And so you're talking about, like, embracing that. Finding the beauty within it.
Yes, and also allowing, like, recognizing, because this is something I've thought a lot about as a teacher, like an instructor, how much of myself am I willing to give? How much of myself am I willing to show? How much am I wanting to pass? I'm not going to, like, disclose everything right away to my students about myself. And it's the same thing, like, I think living here, I've learned more to cherish, like, different levels of opening up. And, like, for me, it's become even more important to have those, like, close members of, like, queer community. Like, for me, and honestly, like, you know, I moved here in August of 2020, deep COVID times. And that same year is when I started playing D&D with, I call it my queer D&D group, and they're friends pretty much who I've known since middle school, high school, a very, very long time.
Gotcha.
Although in different capacities, you know, this really, I think, brought us all closer, and it's so important to have people like that in your life, and I think private moments of sharing, you can, like, get the courage to share parts of yourself more publicly.
Absolutely.
Too. So for me, it's like those pockets of heat in what is otherwise a sea of coldness.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So, the publication process is challenging. In all of this, who are some queer poets who have, like, inspired you, especially in Utah, or some other readings that you've looked to that you've admired?
Oh my gosh. So, I first have to begin with my friend and colleague, Maddie Lane Glasgow, who, if you haven't read his book, Deciduous Queen, it's incredible. And just even writing across genres, like, if you're looking for work that is, like, really intensely thoughtful, really smart, and at the same time, like, really lyrical, and isn't afraid to, like, go in on experiences that I think are, like, central, but I often get told my work is, like, difficult, or, like, emotionally difficult, basically. Harrowing is a word that people use a lot. Harrowing. And for me, it's, like, it's funny because that's the work that I'm interested in reading.
Yeah.
I like intense people, and I like intense art, and I like intense poetry, and nonfiction, and all the other genres, whatever. It's just what holds, you know, those are the experiences that I relate to, and like sort of the emotional landscape that I relate to. So yeah, in Utah, certainly, Maddie is definitely a favorite. Jamie L. Smith, who I believe is in Utah now, I think finishing the program soon, and her book, Flawed Mythologies, is actually coming out soon. But, you know, writing the book is sort of about being, like, badly behaved and being loved through that bad behavior, and loving others through their own bad behavior, if you want to think about it in those terms. Other, like, favorite queer writers, oh my gosh, this list is so incomplete because it's just like, I love Kay Ivor, S.G. Maldonado Velez, Jacobe Dunlady, Carl Phillips, Sam Sachs, just like, there's so many amazing queer writers, but I have a bountiful list.
Bountiful list?
I have a bountiful
It
list.
should be.
It's like essential, right? And like, yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. Jess, thank you so much for being here. And where can people find you?
People can find me at jessicatanck.com. All of my social media handles are listed on there, except for my Tumblr. And you can find Winter Here wherever books are sold.
Awesome. Amazing. You can see more from the Poetry Vlog at thepoetryvlog.com/thepoetryvlog, where you can see Jess's video and any others like it in various playlists. But yeah, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and help support the channel, and bye!